Good afternoon and welcome to our review of the final day of cross-country racing here in Rybinsk in Russia. And it's the two skiathlons, the women's skiathlon and the men's skiathlon, which took place a little earlier today. We're going to pick up the action very shortly with the women's skiathlon with Elizabeth Stephen there for America wearing bib 1. And of course this is 7.5 kilometers in classic style with a mass start followed by 7.5 kilometers freestyle. And of course this is a race which is going to feature in next month's upcoming World Championships. Of course, as we have all through the weekend, we've missed Marit Bjørgen and Teresa Johaug and the likes of Heidi Weng and Ragnhild Hildhager from Norway. But the field here for the women is a really interesting one. 53 competitors from 15 countries, and many of them have finished there or thereabouts in the last Winter Olympic Games in Sochi in this particular discipline, and indeed in Val di Fiemme in the last World Championships. Astrid Jacobsen, who on Friday won the women's 10-kilometer freestyle race. Interesting to see how she gets on with this sort of distance in the two codes. And also up there, Steffi Böhler, who equaled her personal best, finishing third on Friday. And Elizabeth Stephen furthest away from you there. And she, of course, a lifetime best for herself and any US woman skier. No woman skier had ever in a distance race finished in second place before that achievement. So everybody fired up. I'm David Goldstrom. Alongside me is Mike Dixon. They start in classic, they change to freestyle, and Mike, not as big a crowd in the stadium because quite a lot of them have stretched out round this shorter loop.
And David, that's exactly what these women want. It's 3 times around a 2.5 kilometer track. Will take about 7.5 minutes to get round that track. Big climb, total of 441 over the 15 kilometers.
So there they go, the mass start. And the 2.5 kilometer loop, the challenge on this particular loop, Mike?
Well, both, they're quite different tracks, although we're using the same stadium. Certainly a little, in my take of the situation, it's a little more testing, a little more difficult in the classic style. A steeper mountain to climb, and then a smaller one after it. In the skating technique, 2 easier major climbs.
And there you can see a little bit of traffic problems already, but not for Kerttu Niskanen, who goes out of trouble. She was 7th in Sochi and 12th in the World Championships, and she's an improving athlete. So very interesting to see her making this strong start. Those who have a speciality in classic skiing, and I would note Astrid Jacobsen, they've really got to make their presence felt in this first part. And if they are more specialists in classic, Mike, I guess you'd agree with me, they've got to try and get a break, a cushion of advantage before they switch skis, poles into the freestyle.
Definitely, and Niskanen does spring to mind when you look at the classic, and Shekaleva is also I would say a little better classic than freestyle, certainly good in both. And Niskanen taking the early lead, setting the early pace.
Böhler wearing 2 on the far side there, wearing 9. That's Astrid Jacobsen. Not far behind is also Shekaleva of Russia. Shekaleva, who was 4th, just missed the podium behind Böhler, behind Stephen, and behind Jacobsen. 7 in that near side final. That's Tani Gina. She was a decent 7th. As we see how they get away. Have to stay straight for 100 meters.
Yes, this is the easiest part of the track. They will be coming back through the stadium each time around. 3 times around this track in the classic. And David, with minus 13 2 days ago, 0 degrees today, it does make it difficult for the grip wax. I know a lot of the technicians have been struggling, and the athletes deciding at the last minute which sets of skis to use.
Yeah, you could easily lose your skiathlon chances here if your servicemen are not quite up to it. You saw a little bit of slipping there from Kerttu Niskanen and Astrid Jacobsen. Nice rhythm here. Good to see Jacobsen back. She knows that her World Championship chances very much depends not on only what she's done here and what she does today, but also on the upcoming Norwegian Championships, all the national championships coming after this weekend's competition in Russia, and that will determine for pretty well every nation who will go to Falun in February.
A lot of pressure, and I think these races last 3 days very good for Jakobsen. I'm a little surprised she's taking the early pace on, but clearly feeling good after the confidence build from 2 days ago in the 15-kilometer.
Yeah, it was actually the 10 kilometer. But I think your point is right, Mike, because this is a different sort of energy management.
Well, it is, and with the 7.5 freestyle coming up later, and I think Jakobsen is marginally better in the freestyle, I'm surprised she's trying to set the early pace here.
I've always regarded her as being a little better in the classic, but we'll wait and see. But Björn there, Čekaleva into third place. And on the near side there, that's Martine Hagen. She was a decent sixth. She's a young Norwegian racer, and inevitably in the shadow of the likes of Bjørgen and Johaug. But if you look back through her record, last year she won the under-23 World Skiathlon title in Val di Fiemme, and that was a really good performance. So up front, Jakobsen setting the pace. So coming into the stadium now to complete the first 7.5 kilometers in classic style, and as you can see here, there's been a breakaway in the last 2.5 kilometers, and the first 5 there, Čekaleva, Hagen, and also Jakobsen, Niskanen and Bøhler have got away from the field. They've opened up a 12-second advantage, and people like Elizabeth Stephen and Rita-Lisa Rothman haven't really made any impression. So coming into the pit stop, Mike. Good
drills here, David. You need to be in control of the situation. Ski poles off, because the classic ski poles are shorter, picking up longer ski poles, but also clipping into shorter skis and stiffer skis for now the freestyle.
Seems to be a real determination about Čekaleva here. She's getting plenty of support from by the Russian crowd, just opening up there. And bib number 9, that's Jakobsen, and Hagen right on her ski tails there. So Russia, Norway, Norway. The 1, 2, 3, and getting away from the likes of Niskanen and Bøhler a little bit. And so again, that was a pretty important pit stop. It's the only one they do, and you can see the other two just in the background there, and that's going to put them under pressure, Mike.
It certainly is. And David, once you're changing technique, it's almost from running. Imagine running flat out for 7.5 kilometers, then jumping on a bike and pushing big gears. That's the feeling in the legs. It takes a couple of kilometers to then build your tempo, and I think the Norwegian girls will come back on Čekaleva.
Interesting though, Čekaleva's turned the screw a little bit. I mean, she really has accelerated up this first climb out of the stadium. Jakobsen is only now beginning to respond, and Hagen, who's less experienced there, perhaps taking guidance from Jakobsen. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you're too respectful of your senior teammate. Meanwhile, Čekaleva is just trying to open this gap up, and is doing all her best work now. She did a really good job coming into the stadium, and she's never won a World Cup race, so this will be very much on her mind. And again, you've got to think she's thinking World Championship selection for the Russian team.
Definitely, and this she's clearly setting out with intent here in the freestyle, the 7.5 kilometers, to be attacking this first 1.5 kilometers with the intensity. It's impressive.
Now that's interesting, you see, because she came out of the stadium, there was only about a second between them, and that's a 7-second advantage she's opened up in, what, 800 meters.
And in everything she's done earlier this season, we've never really seen the indication that she can handle this turn of pace to separate herself from, well, Jakobsen, Hagen.
Elizabeth Stephen there, leading from Kristin Styrer. Kristin Styrer very much on the comeback trail, but I'm thinking to myself, as you see Čekaleva turn the screw again, she's accelerated again, and these two Norwegians, I think, to a certain extent, have been caught out, and they've really got to try and respond now, because otherwise they're just leaving this race to Čekaleva, who, having made a break, even though we're still quite a long way from home, when you make a break like this, it's got to be decisive.
It's incredible. I'm really surprised. All the advice from the coaches will have been to the Norwegian girls: stick with any pace that is given after the classic and just stay with it. And normally that's a more efficient way to manage your race, but they've decided to allow a 12-second now gap to Chickaleva.
Yeah, Chickaleva, fourth in the 10-kilometer race on Friday. Bit disappointed, to be perfectly honest, that she wasn't on the podium, and that was her reaction at the end of it all there. But trying to make sure that it's not a repetition. And she's now moving into a point in the race here where she's absolutely on her own, except for the coaches that are on critical points around the track, who've now got to give her the differentials. She's opened up to 13 seconds from 8 seconds, so she's still moving away from the two Norwegians. Now, coming up this hill, the snow was extremely soft in the sprint yesterday. It's more compact today.
It is. It's certainly a brave strategy. There must be, what, at least 16, maybe 17 minutes left of this race. So to lead out front for that period of time, it's a huge challenge for the Russian.
Jakobsen and Hagen there.
Now there's a turn of pace there, David, realizing, okay, we need to do some work here to close this gap.
And Hagen, in fact, I think has gone ahead of Jakobsen. Indeed she has, and she's realized that Jakobsen is limited, doesn't have much more to give, and realized, perhaps a little too late, time will tell, that she's got to give chase now to try and close the gap. And that is a yawning gap. That camera is actually foreshortening the distance. Good, nice aerodynamic tack. Look at the skis running nice and sweetly, economical steps there as she comes into the stadium to prepare to go out for yet another rotation.
Well, everything about Chikaleva's performance looks in control. She doesn't even look, her facial expression's not even stressed. And she's a very local girl, David, only living up the road in Vologda, and it's 90 kilometers northeast from here. So she does use this stadium very, very often.
Yeah, she's had a couple of second places in her career. I suppose the most relevant one was the year before the Olympics in Sochi when they had the dress rehearsal, and she was actually the runner-up in the skiathlon in that race.
How should have wished that was the Olympics the year later.
Yeah, and last year in the 10-kilometer classic in Śląska Poręba in Poland was runner-up there. So she's knocked on the door a couple of times, but she's given herself a really good chance. But you can see Hagen has responded, because that gap was 13 seconds outside the stadium, and Hagen's got it back to within 9.
And with 5 kilometers to go, and you're absolutely right, Hagen has picked up her tempo, and that beautiful, easy flowing Norwegian technique that she's showing us there. Closing the gap quite quickly now.
Yeah, just I said that she won the under-23 skiathlon. She actually won it before that in 2012. So twice she's been under-23 world champion at this particular discipline. And there, well, those little green markers tell you who's making and who's dropping there. And you can see that Elizabeth Stephen making a little bit of ground. Jess Diggins also making some ground up. Jess Diggins, who was 5th, I think, if my memory serves me right, in the sprint. Yes, she was, and she was 12th in the 10-kilometer race. So making a little bit of progress now, Jess Diggins, whereas Elizabeth Stevens hasn't really had the impact I was thinking she might have on this race.
Well, I would expect Stevens to, on this major climb, good view of the climb here, she could make 1 or 2 seconds back. We'd expect. Very, very good climber. We saw that on the Tour de Ski.
Look at Eck there. There's a definite determination about the way she's skiing. And of course, she's never won a race, so she's at the moment very much on for a personal best. Steffi Böhler there, closing up on Astrid Jakobsen in 3rd place. And this is ominous. I think Böhler, if she looks over her shoulder, she'll see Elizabeth Stevens leading the next posse. In there is Styra. She wears 17. She's in line there. 15, that's Rita-Lisa Ropponen. This second half of the race should be much more to her liking. 3 in there is... that's Kerttu Niskanen, who's dropped back, and 11 right at the back of that is Jess Diggins of America. I've been quite impressed, Mike, by the American women. As as a team. There seems to be good spirit in the team.
It's an incredibly positive team, and when you're living together for the months that these girls and men do on the tour, you have to make a good team, but you have to help create and give to the team.
Generally, US sport doing pretty well, and very good result from Taylor Fletcher from Japan yesterday, finishing third place, getting on the podium in the Nordic combined. A man who's been dominating that for the last couple of weekends is Eric Frenzel of Germany. Won the Seefeld Treble and then has followed up by winning both races in Japan. So that's 5 in a row for the German, and really now dominating the Nordic combined. But back to cross country here. Now it was just inside 9 seconds, and there you can see Martina Hagen, or Martine Hagen, I should say, 6.1. So she's working extremely hard. And there, Steffi Böhler with the pigtails leading this chase. And right on the left of the picture, now here is a mover. This is Slind of Norway, wearing bib number 35. And the Norwegian just closing on the likes there of Rita-Lisa Ropponen. In fact, taking a leaf out of her book as Elizabeth Stephen gets shuttled back. Jess Diggins still at the back of that little group there, and there, disappointingly, Niskanen. We thought she'd have a better race than this, but there it is.
The bonus points twice on this race. Earlier they had a sprint, and of course we saw their 15 points, and that goes towards the season-long sprint bonus points.
Yeah, sometimes it's a little disruptive, but it's not actually disrupting this race because of Chekaleva being so far in front. And she's just focusing on the win. That's what she wants more than anything else. Whatever bonus points come her way, she'll be more than happy. But you can see there the kilometers clicking down. So about 3.5 kilometers to go, a bit less than that now. And she really does look in charge of this race. She's skiing better now than at any stage in this freestyle leg. Somehow she's, I think, got the message. She's growing in confidence. She's seen off the likes of Jakobsen and Böhler. You can't see that posse in the background. Only Hagen there, and I think she's going away from Hagen. Yes, she is, because it was 6 seconds. It's now 7.3. So Chekaleva doing all the right things now.
And in racing, you think if only Hagen had reacted earlier and they got into the slipstreaming. There's this 7 to 14 second gap. It's making life so difficult for Hagen.
I understand that, but I think she probably thought, well, Astrid Jakobsen's the more experienced. She's probably got a better handle on how we should go. And maybe she's thinking that Chekaleva could not keep this up, but Chekaleva has kept it up. And now Martine Hagen having closed, you can just see the shoulders rocking from side to side. It just tells you that the gas tank is emptying.
It certainly is, and these athletes know each other so well, and you're absolutely right. With Chekaleva finishing 4th in the 10-kilometer freestyle 2 days ago, they wouldn't have expected her to be able to sustain such a fast pace, so they did let her go after the classic stage.
Yeah, she was 4th, and Hagen was 6th. So if you take that at face value, you're going to suspect, because this is the freestyle leg, that actually Chekaleva would have the legs of Hagen.
Yes, but I must say it's Jakobsen that's surprising me. Steyrer who's surprising me, but Steyrer is a bit of a miracle, having cracked her pelvis in 2 places in the autumn and now back racing again.
Steffi Böhler just going through a picture there. And now they're coming to the stadium for the penultimate time. One more loop to go, and the Russians slightly disappointing that there's not a full stadium crowd there today, because they were terrific yesterday in the sprint. That sort of gives you a rather different impression. But Chekaleva going out, and the gap is 6.1. So Hagen actually just dropped off a couple of seconds, but in the stadium on the flat there has pulled that deficit back from 7-8 seconds back to 6. But all the time it's taking a lot of energy away from her, whereas Chekaleva is now skiing at a very rhythmical, economical pace. And skipping round there, that's Rita-Lisa Ropponen leading 17. That's Steyrer in there, and Jakobsen and Diggins also now, who was at the back of that second group, beginning to really make her presence felt. But I just think, Mike, they're probably too far behind with only 2.5 kilometers to go.
You'd expect so, too much with too little distance left. And, well, 25 seconds back to Steyr, 24.4 to Ropin, and we know how strong she is. But I don't think there's enough track left unless Shekaleva burns up, expires a little in this final 2.5. But she just looks so much in control.
Yeah, interesting that Silje Slind from Oppdal in Norway, mid-20s, a decent 6th yesterday in the freestyle sprint, and she was only 29th in the 10-kilometer freestyle, but overall this is a much better performance, and she's moving into a strong top 10 position. And who knows, Slind, well, she could be there or thereabouts for a personal best. And now you can see what's happened here, that Martine Hagen is out on her own and leading the chase here. This is 17, this is Steyr.
Well, she admitted 2 days ago that her race feeling just isn't quite there. The turbos haven't connected or kicked in yet, but she's expecting the form to come up and up for the Norwegian selection races next weekend. These races will do her no harm in that mission.
Yeah, she's a real star team player. Many gold medals with the Norwegian relay women's team, who've got something to prove come February after the nightmare in Sochi, where they were odds on to take the gold medal, and their servicemen had a bad day at the office, and as a result so did those young women. But Steyr, of course, is the woman who so many times at the Olympic Games, no less than 4 times individually, finished in 4th place, not least in 2010 in Whistler. She was 4th in the pursuit. Also in Pragelato in 2006. She was 4th, but she did at least get a bronze medal in Sochi, which is a super reward for someone who'd been a great servant and still is a great servant to the team. She's only 33, Steyr, so no reason after that awful injury that took a heck of a long time to recover from, that she's got something to offer. She will be thinking, I would imagine, Mike, that if it isn't these World Championships, then it could be 2017 in Lahti, and then who knows, maybe Pyeongchang and the Winter Olympics in 2018. She's still young enough to, you know, retain good form. There's Steffi Böhler. Böhler looking a bit more energized at the moment.
Well, and the final climb and the intensity. Steyr has gotten so wide there, David. The best race line was on the inside. For some reason, she opted to go the long way around, and now losing places for that mistake.
Tanigina there, a little bit ploddy, I would say, going through there. Obviously, the energy evaporating, and Niskanen, well, this is hurting. This is really hurting now.
Yeah, classic, very strong. She was leading until last few 100 meters before the changeover, but she needs to improve marginally in her freestyle, and she could be winning these races.
Yeah, the Finnish women's team at this particular moment, I wouldn't be as optimistic as I have been in previous years of them achieving, you know, maybe a relay medal. I think this could be very interesting at Falun about the countries that are going to be involved in this. Obviously we can see Norway, we can see Sweden. They both got very strong teams. I think the Russians have got a shout at this as well.
Getting better, but the Finns, of course, they've got Niskanen, say, to do the classic leg, and well, even Ropinen possibly for the classic leg.
Well, this is looking very good for Shekaleva, because you can see it's now 11 seconds back to Hagen. But I don't want to be critical, because both of these women are actually skiing now for personal lifetime best. One for a victory and Hagen for a lifetime best. Her first podium this would be.
Oh, brilliant. And you can see the inspiration. She's realizing that there's an attack from behind. Her coach ran alongside her, telling her to, demanding that she try and close the gap on Shekaleva, but that surely is not possible now.
Chasing up here, Ropinen doing her best work. The problem is that Ropinen lost well, 20 seconds and a little bit more in the classic leg, and that really hasn't given her a platform from which to attack. You know, Ropponen, who was 10th in the 10-kilometer freestyle, which I think is absolutely her cup of tea. So this 7.5 kilometers ought to be really good. There's Ropponen, she's in there, and the two Americans also, Stephen and Diggins. They're going to have their private little fight. Interesting, because we're going to have a fight for the third place on the podium, even if we're not going to have a chase down for first and second.
Oh, and look at Ropponen, the work effort up that major climb. At the moment, slight advantage. I thought there'd be more of a pack descending this hill.
Berla's done the work, hasn't she? And gone into third place, and here comes Chekalova into the stadium complex, and looking terrific for her first ever World Cup success. So she's knocked on the door a couple of times in her life, but this time nobody is going to deny her. And Yulia Chekalova for Russia, at the age of 30, is going to realize her personal dream. Little twisty and turny to come round into the final finishing straight, but now she'll get a rousing cheer. There they are, the predominantly Russian audience, and they've got a winner. The wind is behind her and blowing her home here in a really comfortable and impressive victory. She has commanded this race pretty well from two-thirds into the classic leg.
A day she will always remember, David, and I thought she did so well there. The brave attempt to break the field early and to hang on to that lead.
Hagen, and the race is on for third and fourth place, and it's between Ropponen and Berla as they come through. Ropponen on the right of the picture, Berla on the left. It's going to be on the lunge of the ski here. Oh, that angle just suggested Ropponen, and they've given it to her. So Ropponen gets on to the podium, and Diggins finishes in fifth place, Styra just behind. But actually, Mike, what that tells you there, those gaps of 22, 23, 24 seconds, is that basically they didn't really make much impression on the second discipline, the freestyle leg.
Not at all, and Chekalova, the early burst from when she clipped into her freestyle skis, she really read this course so well, and as you say, very little movement from the big names in terms of closing the gap in which they finished after the classic leg.
Well, two women really happy, and that is a personal best for Martine Hagen. And Ropponen, that is a season's best for her, finishing in third place. And Steffi Berla, who was third on Friday, it's a decent result for her. Jess Diggins up to fifth place, fifth along with her fifth place finish in the sprint yesterday. And Sadie Bjørnsen. One other racer that I wanted to pick up there was Silja Slind, had bib 35, finished in 8th place, ahead of Astrid Jakobsen. And Tanigina was the Russian who completed the top 10. 47 seconds separating the top 10. And Chekalova at the finish line, 15, 16 seconds almost clear of Hagen, and 22 ahead of Ropponen. So almost, you would say, Micah, a one-woman race. Next, the men's.